This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
We're
a look.
trying to, can you hear me, Judge? I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Zoom is one of the largest tech companies in the world, dominating competition from tech giants like Microsoft and Google, and worth an estimated $139 billion. And while the company grew rapidly amid COVID-19, it's far from being an overnight success. In fact, it took the dreams of a love-struck teen to leaving a six-figure salary and then nearly a decade for Zoom to finally take off.
Before we get into the story, we would like to quickly thank our sponsor, Skillshare, an online learning platform with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. One course that we especially love is Art of the Start, Turning Ideas into High-Growth Businesses by Guy Kawasaki, a Silicon Valley venture capitalist and Apple's former chief evangelist. Guy shares powerful principles on how you can start, launch, fund, and pitch your business idea to investors. For example, Guy reveals and explains why the best pitches have no more than 10 PowerPoint slides, last no more than 20 minutes, and contain a 30-point font. When you join Skillshare, you can try one of the platform's live classes and experience real-time inspiration as you connect with popular teachers like Guy, all while watching and working alongside other members. Start exploring your creativity today by being one of the first 1,000 subscribers to click our link in the description below and get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare.
On February 20, 1970, Eric Yuan was born in Tai'an, China to a middle-class family. From an early age, Eric set out on a path different from his parents, who were both mining engineers. In 4th grade, he started a business where he would collect construction scraps and recycle them for cash. When he discovered that a facility only needed metal, he decided to burn the extra scraps in a chicken shack behind his neighbor's house. Soon after, the shack caught on fire and firefighters were called over to put it out. "My parents were really upset," Eric recalled. From then on, Eric pursued a more conventional path. After high school, he moved to Qingdao and studied applied mathematics at the prestigious Shandong University of Science and Technology. During Eric's first year of college, he was miserable. His girlfriend Sherry lived in another city and he had to take 10-hour train rides to visit her. The experience often involved switching trains, being squeezed up against other passengers, not being able to sleep from the discomfort and an unpleasant smell, and having to stand where there were no more seats available. Because of the distance, Eric could only see Sherry twice a year and often daydreamed about finding a different way to spend time with her. "I thought it would be fantastic if in the future there was a device where I could just click a button and see and talk to her." After graduating with an undergraduate degree in applied mathematics, Eric pursued a master's degree in engineering from China University of Mining and Technology. When he completed the program, he moved to Beijing for work and was sent to Japan for a 4-month training program. While in Japan, Eric had the opportunity to hear Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates deliver an inspiring speech about the internet. At the time, most people in China hadn't even heard about the internet. Realizing that it would change the world and would likely take 5 to 10 years to take off in China, Eric decided to try and find work in the US. When Eric returned to China, he applied for a US visa. During the process, a customs official asked him for an English version of his business card. While Eric handed over a card that listed him as a consultant, the official misunderstood his title as being a part-time contractor and accused Eric of lying on his application. Eric was devastated. Over the next 2 years, he applied 8 more times and was rejected each time. In spite of all the rejections, Eric refused to give up on his dream of joining the internet revolution in the US. During his 9th attempt to apply for a US visa, he told himself, "I'll do all I can until they tell me that I can never come back anymore. Otherwise, I'm not going to stop." Fortunately for Eric, his persistence paid off. After his 9th attempt, he was finally given a US visa. While Eric still didn't know how to speak English, he managed to land a job as a software engineer in Silicon Valley. A Chinese businessman that he knew named Min Zhu had just launched an online conferencing startup called WebEx and was recruiting engineers from all over the world. At the time, the company was hatching up a bold plan to go up against the richest man in the world, the same man that inspired Eric to move to the US. The co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates. Min and his co-founder Subra Iyer were building a product called WebEx Meeting Center, a software that would allow multiple users to join a virtual meeting. Before they could launch, Microsoft came out with a similar service called NetMeeting. While it was free, users found it difficult to use and the connection unstable. It was also only available on Windows computers. To compete with NetMeeting, Min and Subra strived to make WebEx Meeting Center easier to use, work on Windows, Mac, and Solaris computers, and have a more reliable connection. But unlike Microsoft, Min and Subra would charge customers for additional features. Venture capitalists doubted that Min and Subra could succeed, leading to financial troubles for the company. It was hard to raise a lot of venture capital money when you would walk into a room and say, "So, there's a piece of software that Microsoft puts on every computer for free, and we are essentially going to go into that market and compete with them with an on-demand service," Subra recalled. To keep WebEx running, Min and Subra had to hire out half of its engineering team to consulting projects to bring in revenue. Meanwhile, Eric worked around the clock to build WebEx Meeting Center and managed to learn how to speak English from his colleagues. But in spite of his efforts, he found himself being repeatedly overlooked by others. "I saw a tremendous amount of unconscious bias against Eric because he didn't look the part, he didn't sound the part," explained David Knight, a WebEx employee. "We put so much stock in how people communicate, we ascribe their eloquence to be their intelligence." Since Eric couldn't control how others viewed him, he decided to focus on what he could manage, his work. "I learned 2 things from my father: keep working hard, stay humble, and someday you'll be okay," Eric recalled. Eventually, everyone at WebEx knew of Eric because of his work ethic, humble manner, and intense curiosity about all aspects of the startup's business. And over time, Eric was promoted to engineer manager, senior engineer manager, director, and then senior director. 2 years later, WebEx finally launched WebEx Meeting Center and offered a free and a paid version. The free version was supported by advertisements and allowed up to 6 users to join a virtual meeting. Users could text, chat, and share their desktop screens to show a website, presentation, document, or a software application. They could also dial into a telephone conference call, but each user would be charged 12 cents per minute. The paid tier offered the same features but gave companies a white label version that allowed them to set up their own branding for $99 a month per user. In addition, WebEx managed to solve the issue that competitors face with unreliable connections by developing the Mediatone network, the first private global network designed to preserve high-speed connections for sending data, audio, and video. By the end of its first year of launching, WebEx enabled audio and video conferencing, and within the following year, notable tech magazines ranked WebEx Meeting Center as an editor's choice and highlighted that when compared to competitors, it was the most expensive but easiest to use. WebEx's revenue then jumped from $2.5 million to $25 million within a year. Later, the rate of business travel in America dropped due to the tragic events at the World Trade Center, the recession from the dot-com bubble burst, the SARS epidemic, and the war in Iraq. Companies that would typically fly out their employees for meetings turned to services that enabled virtual meetings. While WebEx managed to scale and meet the increasing demand, the company decided to go public in hopes of raising enough money to ensure it can continue to operate smoothly. Within a month, WebEx's stock price jumped from $14 to $58 per share. Unbeknownst to Eric, WebEx's success would lead him to being repeatedly overlooked yet again, igniting a fire within him to take on the world's biggest tech companies alone. After WebEx's IPO, the company overtook Microsoft, dominated the market, leading to attractive acquisition offers. At the time, WebEx owned 65% of the market while Microsoft owned 19%. IBM approached WebEx, but WebEx turned them down to accept Cisco's offer for $3.2 billion in cash. Cisco hoped to diversify its core business of building switches and routers that control internet data traffic and expand into the small and mid-sized business market, which was the majority of WebEx's customers. After the announcement was made, some WebEx employees took their earnings from the acquisition and split. Eric decided to stay. By then, he was WebEx's VP of Engineering, had contributed to revenue growth from 0 to $380 million, and was even more devoted to the company's products. Cisco recognized his loyalty and talent and made him their corporate VP of Engineering. Still, Eric found himself being repeatedly overlooked yet again. Almost immediately, Cisco started to dismiss everything that we did, explained Matt Shepard, a former WebEx employee. Eric was dismissed, along with other leadership at WebEx, as being kind of second-rate. While it was obvious that WebEx was now a cog in one of the world's largest tech companies, Eric decided to yet again focus on what he could manage: his work. At first, Eric set a goal of helping to grow WebEx's revenue to $1 billion, but after a few years, he reconsidered the possibilities. Whenever he was given the opportunity to meet with customers, he discovered they no longer enjoyed using WebEx Meeting Center or other video conferencing services. They complained about problems that WebEx had not encountered before the mobile evolution: time-consuming installation processes, mobile connectivity issues, video and audio lag, and a lack of modern features such as mobile screen sharing. Each time users logged onto a conference, the system would slow down since it had to identify which version of the product to run on: iPhone, Android, PC, or Mac. If there were several people on the line, the connection would strain and lead to choppy audio and video. Eric realized that the only way to address these problems was to build something from scratch, since the core code of WebEx Meeting Center was written 12 years ago. While it would ensure Cisco's video conferencing services adapted to the mobile evolution, Cisco failed to see the opportunities and offered Eric zero support. They were more concerned about building their own social network, an enterprise version of Facebook. Eric was deeply disappointed and felt like he was letting his customers down. Every day when I woke up, I was not happy. I didn't even want to go to the office to work. After a year of pleading with his bosses to let him rebuild WebEx to no avail, Eric told his wife, Sherry, that he wanted to leave Cisco and build something better on his own. Something that could have allowed him to talk with and see her more than twice a year when they were dating all those years ago in college. Sherry was skeptical, but Eric managed to convince her after admitting that while he knew it would be a long and difficult journey, if he didn't try, he'll regret it. I was already 41 years old at the time. I told her there's no other time. Soon, I may not have enough energy. With Sherry's support, Eric felt more ready than ever to pursue his plans. But 2 months after telling his family, he found himself dealing with more than he anticipated. His beloved father suddenly passed away. In spite of the devastating news, Eric decided to continue to pursue his plans with his father's advice in mind. Keep working hard, stay humble, and someday you'll be okay. After walking away from his 6-figure salary at Cisco, he picked up the phone and cold called venture capitalists to pitch his idea of launching a user-friendly and mobile-ready video conferencing service. VCs told Eric his idea was terrible. The video conferencing market was already crowded. WebEx was still leading in market share, Microsoft had just bought Skype, Google had just launched Hangouts for free, and Apple just launched FaceTime that was built into their devices. There was also multiple startups trying to enter the market, such as BlueJeans. Though some investors did think Eric's idea was viable, they just didn't believe an engineer could succeed in selling a product. Still, Eric remained undeterred and changed his computer screensaver to "It can't be done" to motivate himself to keep trying. After countless rejections, Eric decided to try and raise money from people he knew instead of cold calling VCs. It was a decision that he was initially hesitant to make since part of him feared that he would let them down. Fortunately, some of Eric's friends were very supportive and offered to invest. One even arranged for him to meet with a former Cisco executive who had just become an angel investor, Dan Scheinman. At the time, most VC firms were competing against each other to invest in young graduates who came from a small list of universities and companies. Being an angel investor who was investing with his own money, Dan knew he couldn't outbid these firms and decided to invest in underserved niches in the market instead. And while he didn't know what Eric was planning to build, he was open to hearing his idea and agreed to meet him in person. On my drive to meet him, I did the fastest reference check ever. I was hearing things like, he's the greatest person I've ever worked for, the greatest technical business mind ever. By the time I got there, I was already convinced. I just wanted to be involved. So I actually wrote out a check and I handed it to him. And he said, for both of our sakes, let me show you the presentation. When Dan learned why and how Eric planned on building a user-friendly and mobile-ready video conferencing service, he was even more convinced and introduced Eric to his cousin, who is a venture capitalist, Jim Scheinman. Afterward, Eric managed to raise a total of $3 million. The capital came from Dan, Jim, WebEx co-founder Subra Iyer, venture capitalist Matt Ocko, Bill Tai, Amino Capital, and TSVC, as well as a group of friends. While it was a huge step forward, Eric now felt the pressure of not letting several people down, especially his friends. I sent them all an email. I said, first of all, I will do all that I can to work as hard as I can to give you a 10 times return. I told my friends, if the company doesn't do well, I will return the money and make sure you will all be okay. From a rundown office in Santa Clara, California, Eric started working away alongside 40 engineers that worked with him at WebEx and then hired more engineers in China. After 1 year, Eric finally launched his company under the name Zoom and released its first product, a free HD video conferencing software that allowed up to 15 participants to join a call, more than any other existing service. Users could log in with their Facebook or Google accounts and invite others to join a call through sharing a link. Invitees could then join with a single click since downloading the app and signing up weren't required. The product worked on Windows, Mac, and Apple devices like iPads and iPhones. It also worked over wired and Wi-Fi connections and cellular 3G and 4G networks, even when the connection was weak or unstable. On the day of Zoom's release, Wall Street Journal columnist Walter Mossberg compared Zoom to Skype and Google Hangouts and noted its video and audio quality was much better and didn't stutter or freeze. Other reviewers noted that what really set Zoom apart was how well it worked on mobile. At the time, video conferencing companies like Polycom were more focused on building hardware solutions as opposed to software solutions like Zoom, since they believed better hardware meant better image and audio quality. Plus, the healthcare and education sectors recognized its value and were driving the demand. As a result, mobile remained a vulnerability for many video conferencing companies. 3 months after Zoom's release, Eric managed to sign up Zoom's first major customer, Stanford University's continuing adult education program. The university was then competing with popular online courses like Coursera and wanted to quickly establish itself with its own distant learning option. While the deal gave Eric confidence in what he and his team had built, he would personally email every customer who canceled their service and ask for their feedback. One customer didn't believe it was Eric and accused him of sending an auto-generated email impersonating the CEO and barked that Zoom was a dishonest company. Eric quickly replied that he did write the email, but the customer still refused to believe him. Eric then offered to meet them on Zoom to prove he wasn't lying. The customer never took Eric up on his offer, but stopped accusing Zoom of being a dishonest company. 1 year later, Zoom was made available on Android and added subscription plans that had no restrictions on meeting durations, business or enterprise for $9.99 per month per host, and education for 99 cents per month per host. In addition, Zoom rolled out new features including allowing up to 100 participants to join a call, global toll-free phone dialing, MP4 recording and playback, and mobile screen sharing. Zoom became the first company in the world to offer mobile screen sharing through the cloud for smartphones and tablets. TechCrunch writer Darrell Etherington was so impressed with Zoom that he wrote the company had the potential to disrupt the online meeting space. Competitors felt the same. Former GoToMeeting employee Jim Mercer admitted that when he and a colleague tried Zoom, they were taken aback by being able to join a call with more than a dozen people. What is this voodoo? How are they doing it? They asked themselves. In spite of the rave reviews, Zoom was only downloaded an estimated 60,000 times and had less than 20,000 active users since its first release. Meanwhile, the company started to run out of money from hiring a large team of engineers. Eric tried to raise more money from VCs, but neither of them were interested. 60,000 downloads in total was considered nothing, since apps that became a hit in those days were getting downloaded around 100,000 times a day. Eric was left with no choice but to ask his early investors if they considered investing again. Fortunately, some agreed, including Bill Tai. Bill then approached other VCs, including Yahoo co-founder Jerry Yang and Qualcomm Ventures. All of them turned him down. "The market is crowded and this company has nothing going on," they explained to Bill. Still, Bill remained persistent and managed to convince Jerry and Qualcomm to reconsider. Zoom then raised a total of $6 million and later an additional $6.5 million from Horizon Ventures and existing investors. Soon after, Zoom started getting viral adoption through its freemium plan, which only restricted meetings to 40 minutes. By the end of the year, Zoom's number of meeting participants reached 1 million. And while it was a major milestone, Eric knew there was no slowing down. "I have 3 kids and I love them, but I could not spend enough time with them. I told my wife I was going to have to work even harder, but promised I would only travel twice a year at most because the technology would be better." 1 year later, Zoom's number of meeting participants reached 10 million, and then increased to 40 million the year after. Zoom's continued growth was largely from word of mouth since it allocated most of its resources towards development. But within the same year, Zoom realized it was time to scale sales and marketing and raise more money to support its efforts. Fortunately, the company managed to raise a total of $45.5 million from Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, Emergence Capital, and existing investors. 2 years later, Sequoia, one of the top venture capital firms in the world, approached Eric. They were looking to invest in a video conferencing product but couldn't find one that customers loved. That changed when the firm's portfolio clients kept raving about Zoom. Eric wasn't looking to raise more money but accepted Sequoia's offer of $100 million, which valued Zoom at $1 billion, and placed the company in the Unicorn Club. By then, Zoom's revenue was $60.8 million and skyrocketed to $151.5 million the year after. Eric then felt prepared to take Zoom public but faced a major problem, having to warn investors that the company's link to China could be seen as a security and privacy risk. Fortunately, Zoom's IPO surpassed expectations and was marked one of the year's most successful debuts, even above splashier tech companies like Lyft and Uber. Overnight, Eric became a billionaire, and the pressure of letting down his family, friends, and investors lifted. But soon after, Eric discovered that he would have to make even more sacrifices. Otherwise, millions of livelihoods were at stake. In the early days of Zoom's growth, Eric told his wife Sherry that he would have to work even harder but promised he would only travel twice a year at most. Several years later, he would have never imagined that he would deliver on that promise for reasons beyond Zoom's technology. When COVID-19 spread around the world and forced people to stay home, millions needed a new way to stay in touch with friends and family, and schools, universities, and workplaces had to shift online. Many ended up using Zoom since it was free, easy to use, worked smoothly on a wide variety of devices, and required no membership or account to join a call. Soon after, the then 9-year-old platform quickly grew and became the most downloaded app globally across the App Store and Google Play, breaking a record of 200 million daily participants, a 20-fold increase compared to the year before. Along with the catch-ups, classes, and meetings, people were using Zoom to host parties, romantic dates, and even weddings. Meanwhile, Eric found himself further away from spending time with family and even more consumed with Zoom, since it was no longer just a video conferencing company. It was suddenly an infrastructure company servicing a broader group of institutions and people. And as a result, a growing number of problems arose involving privacy, security, online moderating, and service capacity. When Zoom took off, security researchers and privacy advocates discovered bugs in the software that would let attackers put malware on a computer or hijack the webcam and microphone. They also discovered that Zoom's privacy policy let the company share data from video and text chats with ad tracking companies. On top of those problems, bored trolls and hackers were taking over public Zoom meetings and displaying graphic content or shouting racist comments, a move that was possible since public Zoom meetings didn't require passwords to join. Meanwhile, Zoom began to experience service outages from surging usage. Eric wasted no time in tackling these problems, sacrificing sleep and reminding himself not to let the world down. He and his team were quick to amend Zoom's privacy policy, patch bugs, enable default meeting passwords, add more data centers, and increase cloud storage capacity. And while the process resulted in the most stressful weeks of Eric's life, he called it a blessing in disguise and remained positive, even when US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrongly described Zoom as a Chinese entity in the context of security and privacy risks. If the world misunderstands us, then I don't blame others. It's our problem. We are a very proud American company. The company is a public NASDAQ company headquartered in San Jose. I'm a Chinese American. I truly believe as long as you do the right thing, sooner or later they will know it. Just be patient. In spite of the scrutiny and misunderstandings, Zoom became the Kleenex of video conferencing and remains known as the easiest, most affordable, and advanced service of its kind, now allowing up to 1,000 participants to join a call. And while Zoom's competitors are also growing at impressive rates, Wall Street analysts highlighted that the company still has advantages above Microsoft and Google. They also predicted that it will remain relevant in a post-pandemic world as more companies replace meeting rooms with software. Today, Eric, one of a handful of Chinese Americans to lead a major Silicon Valley company, is one of the wealthiest men in the world, and Zoom is worth an estimated $139 billion. Eric admits that while he knew leaving Cisco to build Zoom was a huge risk and he wasn't sure if he could pull it off, he understood that in Silicon Valley, everything starts with some risk. If you don't take some risk, there's no reward. You can't get a better product if you just think about it. You have to start somewhere. As for the future of Zoom, Eric recently revealed he's looking to add features and tools that allow users to experience sensations from others, such as smell and touch, and instantly translate calls and automatically generate a meeting summary. This is the story of how a love-struck teen came up with a billion-dollar idea and risked everything to pursue it when he was 41 years old. For more inspiring stories and advice from today's most successful leaders, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.